Welcome back to the CivilNet Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Elliott. I'm actually delighted to be joined by a fellow Montrealer, Mr. Chris Dedeyan, who is the founder of Dedeyan Enterprises. He's a motivational speaker, public speaker, and peak performance coach with Fortune 500 companies. So actually very, very honored to have you in this room with us. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Shashat, merci. I'm really excited to be here and have this great moment with you.
So let's actually start with a curveball here. Tell me what's because I know that I've seen your photos on social media. I know you're working a little bit with Service Titan and a couple other Armenian big names. So what surprised you the most, either positively or negatively, about working with Armenian companies in Armenia, about the culture, the way that they operate, and their desire to invest in self-improvement working with you?
So it is interesting because in regards to the ideology of, I guess, the general people is different than the business world. I've seen a difference. The business world, because it's so advanced in the tech, they're doing a lot of stuff with the Western world from North America, Europe, and beyond. And that's a different approach in the mindset of how to do business with those people. So the workers, when they're in their working mode, their mindset shifts. And then when they're off work, they go back to, let's call it the Hayastansi mindset, which is not bad at all. It's just different. So that's one thing I instantly noticed, of that they can turn it on and off to know how to speak more eloquently and with a vernacular that's more tailored for their customers that are in the Western world. So that was something that is very interesting, and something that actually they're asking me to continue refining with them to have that ease in itself.
Interesting. That's the first time I've ever heard anybody say that, actually. Yeah. Tell me, you have some projects here in Armenia that you're working on. Tell us a little bit about what you're trying to create here. So definitely a bit like you, you're an expat. I'm highly considering doing exactly the same thing as you. I'm looking at the possibilities to move here, put my roots here, and bring my company here as well. A part of it, obviously. You forgot make babies, drink a lot of wine.
That's all.
Those are the, I mean,
my dad would be happy with that one. So, Harilogos, like I'm a proud Armenian, and just that in itself, first of all, the land calls us. And it's not for everyone, because I have a lot of diasporan friends that when they come here, they're like, yo, there's something calling me, this land is calling me. And I have other ones that are like, yeah, you know, it's great for vacation, but I love where I'm from, which is perfectly okay. Yeah. And I'm just on the latter part of that. I'm somebody that just, this land calls me, and it really does. So that's one thing that's kind of calling me. And in regards to the project aspect, I'm seeing opportunities not only to thrive my business here, but to help the Armenian people, because I'm blessed, like you had mentioned, that I'm working with Fortune 500 companies and I'm helping so many people. But I'm like, why am I not helping my people? Because if I help you with the project that you're working on over here with your company, you're only going to succeed more. That means you're going to hire more. That means you're going to spend more money here. That means the GDP is going to go up here. So for me, I look at it not only as my birthright, but it is my duty as an Armenian in the position that I am to come and support it any way that I can, and as well learn from the locals. I'm not going to come here and being like, oh my God, I have all the answers, I'm the savior. No, bro. Like there's a lot for us to learn from the locals, which we're going to develop as well. Well, living here, you see a lot of that. This kind of like Western savior complex where people come and they're like, but there's this really easy solution. And then they just realize that it doesn't actually fit. And then they end up getting burnt because they're like, well, no one wants to listen to me. And it's like, well, yeah, because your ideas don't actually translate here, right? But it's interesting. Like I'm a big believer that you know, my mentor used to say there's two ways to live. You can be dragged kicking and screaming down a path you didn't choose, or you can be inspired by a compelling vision, right? And I'm happy to see that you're called by something. One of the big things for me is that you don't want to have this like almost naive. I'm not saying you're naive. I'm just saying that there's a lot of diasporans who have this idea that like, well, I have a connection to this place, and I really make an effort to look at it as a foreigner. I mean, it helps that I'm half Armenian. It helps that I've lived in 5 different countries. I'm an entrepreneur. I've done business in different countries. And so I always try to look at it from that lens to make sure that I'm not wearing these rose-colored glasses. Yeah. Right? To see the reality of what it is, the good and the bad and the ugly, and of which there's a lot of it, but there's also a lot of beauty, right? So what calls you specifically? What beauty have you noticed here that really makes you go, okay, this is a place where I want to create. This is a place where I feel that I can really produce something of value for the world, regardless whether it's Armenia, Tanzania, Bangladesh, or whatever. Anywhere around. Yeah. First of all, great question, Pat. And to be quite honest, I'm kind of going to answer it backwards in regards to, I'm going to talk about, first of all, the way that I'm approaching it, because you had a very good point in regards to not looking at it with your, colored glasses and just seeing, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I've been blessed in my life with my career that I travel a lot because of my work, and I see other places. So last time I came here, I was here for a month, and I saw a lot of the positive and a bit of the negative, but not that much. This time around, exactly like you said, I'm looking at it, I'm asking people like you, the locals, the students, the entrepreneurs, the politicians, what is the worst thing about living here? If I could understand all the bad things in my short perception, and I'm okay with it, then anything else that's positive is just going to come out and be an extra. That's the way I'm looking at it. If I could live with the negative, the positive is just going to be gravy on top. So in regards to your question of what are some of the positive things, so you're kind of getting to know me, Pat. I'm an intense character. I'm a type A red character. I'm a go-getter, and I work extremely hard. And North America is very conducive for that. What do I mean is that once you go and work in that mindset, you fall into a rat race, the matrix, let's call it. And that's great because you have to get to a certain level, but it's not sustainable unless you're going to hit a wanting or you're okay to hitting a burnout. It's not sustainable as a lifestyle. So for me, first and foremost, this country, and not only this country, but European ideology, it's more, in French we say joie de vivre, there's more like this joy to live. So you're going to work as hard, but then in the evening you go out, there's more that relax. So that intensity level slightly drops down, and I'm in a position in my career right now that I could slightly allow it because I've hired people, I'm delegating, the business is growing. So that's one thing that's very inspiring to me, one. Second thing, I kind of mentioned it and you kind of alluded to it as well. Every single Armenian when we're young, we always, when the diasporans Armenians, let me specify, every single time we walk around and we hear somebody speak Armenian, we're like, oh my God, highest. Yeah. Or when we watch a movie at the end, we stay with our parents and we're watching, oh my God, oh my God, that's
we used to joke that the technician,
exactly. So so our whole life, we've been kind of cultivated the diasporans to find Armenians, to stay with Armenians, to be amongst Armenians because we are a community that is repressed. That's the reality. So we try to stay together. And then as a young kid, if you're getting this planted in your mind, and then you come to Hayastan, Hayrenik, and then you're like, wow, Yirakuinanai, wow, Darerenai, wow, Inka Hayrengo Hosigor. You kind of feel like this whole time in your life, you were looking for the gold at the end of the rainbow, and then you found the gold at the end of the rainbow. And then tell me, oh, leave the gold and go somewhere else. That's something that is for me counterintuitive. That's why I'm like, yo, I found the motherland. Why am I going to leave? So that's another thing that for me attracts me. Other than that, I kind of compare this country right now kind of like to a speedboat. What do I mean by that? North America is right now like a Titanic. The Titanic, when it sees the iceberg, it's already too late. You're going to hit it. It doesn't have enough mobility to move out of the way. Armenia is a burgeoning democracy, a burgeoning geopolitical structure as well. So if we see the iceberg, we're very agile and we can move around it. And that inspires me. It's kind of like that ideology of the Wild West. So for me, I'm like, there's a lot of opportunity. I think we're ahead of the curve, but I want to be a part of the change in the best way that I can in a positive way.
Yeah, I like that you said that. That's kind of the feeling that I have, right? Is that there's this kind of, there's this chaos here, you know, and I just got back from you know, my wife's family in Europe, and I just like it feels so much more civilized. I know I'm going to regret saying this, but you know, and you come back and you're just like, everyone's driving like crazy, and you know, and but there's also this kind of electricity, and you know, as an entrepreneur, you'll appreciate this. Like, I've never seen a country where you can go from like ideation to execution like so fast. Yes. You know, like I had a lunch with a friend of mine where we got an idea, and then during the lunch, he texts his lawyer to draft a contract. She shows up 20 minutes later at the restaurant with the contract, and like, all right, let's get started. It's like in an hour and a half, we had a business plan and a business ready to go. You know, I don't know of many other countries where you can do that. So there's something definitely electric in the air, and it's interesting that you want to become a part of this. I've always believed that it's individuals that really move the needle.
Yes. Right.
So there's this kind of they did this British study. It takes 4% of the population to participate in order for a revolution to succeed.
Yes.
And I think in the same way, if we just had 4% of the population that are working tirelessly to make this place a better place, to make this a functional, solid state where people's rights are respected, and Armenians can come from all around the world and they can prosper and they can live in security with their rights, you know, protected, their language and their culture and their heritage. So bringing this back to you, I want to understand your what role do you see yourself playing in creating and in being part of that change in Armenia?
So
what's your grand vision, if you have it already?
My grand vision, to be quite honest, my thing is I'm an educator. Okay, so like you said, I'm a professional speaker and a peak performance coach. God has blessed me with the skill set of communication. And in a skill set of teaching people the soft skills they need, which is like the hard skills, pretty much everybody knows how to do it. You know how to, like, say if you're an engineer, you know how to do your engineer work. You're a real estate broker, you know how to draft up a contract. You're a lawyer, you know how to do that. But the difference between somebody that succeeds in that same industry compared to somebody else is the soft skills, which is the communication, understanding the biochemistry of the brain and body, being a more eloquent, understanding the emotions of people around you and how to navigate different types of emotions, especially when your company is growing and beyond. So for me, if I come and teach that to the youth right now, and like you said, to the top 4%, I think the gap between both will close. That's my role. Just by being me being me in regards to the coaching stuff, having opportunities to speak here and just naturally doing that and creating that change of that ideology, I think that's the role that God is desiring for me to play here. And then the rest, we'll see what it is. We have some plans, but the lowest hanging fruit is definitely that in itself.
What are some big mindset kind of shifts you would like to see in Armenia? I know you've recently arrived, but I mean, you've also grown up in diaspora, and you know, I mean, we really are raised with a victim mindset.
Yes.
Listen, it comes from tragedy for sure. However, you look at the peoples who have been able to kind of embrace that victimhood and turn it into something actionable. I mean, Israel is a prime example that Armenians use very often, but also, I mean, I'm a little bit biased, but also the Irish who are you know, the Irish humor is famous. They're able to laugh at their own misery to the point where you have, you know, Irish wakes where people are celebrating after funerals, right? So this ability to transform that pain into something, you know, I mean, it's emotional alchemy, right? It's transmuting base metals into gold. And I find that Armenians were too steeped into this complaining mindset, this negative mindset. We're far more likely to search for what's wrong rather than participate in making something right.
Yes.
So what would you like to see? What are some powerful shifts you think that Armenian society as a whole should embrace in order to finally get off our knees and start creating something tangible and real?
Patrick, you hit it right on the nail, bro. That what you said is exactly what we have to change. Now, the question is, how are we going to change that ideology, getting out of the victim ideology and getting into the ideology that, to be quite honest, nobody's going to come save us. We have to save ourselves. So now, by understanding that, then what is the framework we have to put in place? So granted, you have to understand it. There's moments to grieve. There's moments to understand it and be in that state, which is 100% very indicative to each person individually. It's not at all the same duration for the X amount of people, right? But then going towards, okay, what's next? What do I need to do? If I understand that I'm going to have to save myself as a country, and there isn't going to be outside countries, then it's like, what are we going to offer to outside countries that are going to show them value for them to protect us here? How can we invest our money more intelligently in X, Y, and Z? And that starts with the growth mindset. So understanding that we have to have that mindset of there's a problem, but there's always an equivalent solution. The bigger the problem, the more challenging to find that solution, but there always is. It's this counteracting polarity. It's in the law of the universe. God makes it like that. So as much as right now we could be in difficult moments, greatness is coming, but we have to find that polarity in regards to what is that solution. So specifically, it's the mindset, and how I would go about it is starting in the youth. Not only in the youth, but I would actually tailor it a lot towards the men as well, because I've seen a big difference between the mindset of the men compared to the women.
Massive difference.
Massive. It's surprising, actually. The women are so much more advanced in their mindset in regards to what we're talking about, growth mindset in Armenia, than the men are, whatever what I'm noticing. And we're generalizing. I'm not talking about everyone, because I've met so many great men that are top, and I've met so many women that are the opposite as well. So we are generalizing here. Let's just put that out there. But yeah, I would start with the youth. And the youth naturally is already shifting. Why? Because they're speaking more English. Why? Because they have access to social media, and they're having different types of understanding with the ideology of the West. Now, I'm not saying the West is the answer by all means, because we both wouldn't be sitting here right now if we thought the West was perfect, to be quite honest. There's a lot of things that we could talk about the West until tomorrow morning, but there's great things that we should learn from it. There's great things that we should learn from here. There's certain ideologies of conservatism that we should keep, and then we tailor it towards us. And then we have to be intelligent. This is the most important part. Be very intelligent, let's call it, to our enemies, to know when to approach it at the right moments. Because there's a lot of people, me included, I'm sure you included, that we're in pain right now, very much so. And the most easy thing to do when we're in pain is to react when we have that emotion. But instead of reacting, we have to respond. And there's a moment for that. And we might need to wait years to do that. But before doing anything, we have to be very control of our emotions and be like, all right, cool. Let's take our humble juice right now. Let's build what we need to build. And when the opportunity comes, then we'll be able to negotiate more eloquently because we'll have leverage.
Do you know the story of Ivan the Terrible?
I do not. Please tell me.
So Ivan the Terrible's father died when he was quite young. I think was 12 or 13 years old. And he used to hang around the court, the Russian court, picking his nose, drooling, playing with dolls. So the boyars, the princes, they're like, all right, we've got this idiot. Now we get free reign. We get to do whatever we want. As his inauguration date approached, when he turned 16 years old, they kept thinking, you know, it's fine. We'll just control this guy. He's a puppet or so on. And then when his inauguration happened, his eyes sort of rolled back, right? And he showed his real self, and he started clamping down and lobbing heads, right? And became the Ivan the Terrible with his conquests and so on. So that's essentially where we are. For now, we're picking our noses. We've been caught with our pants down. You know, I don't want to get too much into it, but there's so much blame to go around for all of our just staggering failures. And I'm only interested in, okay, where do we go from here?
Yes.
And I think one of the things that's really lacking in Armenia is this common vision. You're absolutely right about the men, by the way. This is it's an uncomfortable reality, but it's the truth. It's that, you know, we did a couple friends of mine, they organized these speaking tours where they go to towns and villages and cities to talk about online work opportunities, right? Remote work opportunities. So you can work remotely in Armenia in your village where your parents probably make $300 a month and you can make $2,000 a month, right? So they invited me for the Gyumri one. So I spoke at the Gyumri one. We had 45 attendees and we had 4 men.
Yeah.
The rest were all women.
Yeah.
They went to Ijevan, where they had the Ijevan University. They had 100 people in the room. There was not a single man who showed up. And I asked, like, what was Vanadzor like? Same thing. So there's this kind of odd cultural divide where the men kind of think, well, look, I'm going to join the army, and then when I'm done, I'll fix cars or something, you know, or I'll take over my uncle's shop or something. And the women are like, all right, let me learn languages, let me work online. So, there is this divide. It's absolutely true.
And you know what, Patrick, if you were in their position, if I was in their position,
we'd be doing the same.
Exactly.
Of course.
So let's empathize, because that's all they know. Not only that's all they know, it's their reality.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you saw, there was a movie done about the war in 2020, and it was called 45 Days, right? So when it was
Emil Gessen's documentary.
Thank you. Exactly, yes. Amazing documentary. And at the end, he interviewed literally a couple of boys that were 8 years old at most. They were playing outside football, bro. And he's like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Asked one of the kids. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I'll see if I get to that age. He's like, I'll probably join the army, and we'll see if I get to like X amount of years.
Yep.
And that broke my heart. And at the same time, clarified so much of like, okay, that's why they think like that. Yep. So if they have the ideology that, hey, there's a high percentage of chance, 50X amount percent or whatever percentage it is, that I'm possibly going to pass away, why would they invest in themselves in X, Y, and Z? Counterpart, the women, they know that, like, hey, we have to educate ourselves to bring the country forward because we're the ones that are staying back. And if we just correlate, let's say, to the Second World War, what was happening? The men were at war and the women stayed, and they started working in the workforce because that's what they had to do to provide and bring the country forward with the war. So they're doing their part. What we have to do is start slowly by slowly, one person at a time, educate the men differently so they see that there's different opportunities. But that's only going to happen through time. This is not a 1 year, this is not a 5 year. I think it's a decade to 2 decade process that we're going to be working on.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. There's this kind of fatalism to Armenians. It's one of the things that does. You mentioned, you know, if you know what the negatives are, I'll tell you, like, one of the things that irks me the most about living here. You know how many roadside accidents, deaths we have every year in Armenia? Over 400. So that's
this in Yerevan only, or all
in all of Armenia? And
that we're about 3 million population. 400. Yeah, that's a high percentage.
It's a very high percentage.
Yeah, that's a very high percentage.
It's a very high percentage. That means every 10 years we have the equivalent of one Artsakh war. Every decade we lose 4,000 people. And 2 days ago, okay, you had a car accident in Yerevan, family of 5. Mom and dad are in the hospital still. Their 5-year-old's in the hospital. 10-year-old's dead, 3-month-old's dead. Okay, and I looked at the photos. The back seat of the car is not damaged. You know what else there wasn't there in those photos? No car seats.
Yeah.
And you ask Armenians about this. Oh, you know, like it's destiny. No, it's not. It's don't text while you're driving, don't drink and drive, put seat belts on and put car seats on.
Yeah.
But there's just this attitude. It's one of the worst things about being here. There's some fantastic things about being here, but there are some things that, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, what is this staggering loss of talent, loss of human life that's so preventable? You know, and it's just this whole like, it's okay. And anyway, this ties back to our conversation in that I think that if there's this, if people have this common vision, in other words, if they're working towards something, they're trying to create something, there's a compelling future to work towards, then you'll have less and less of these things. You'll have less of these instances because people value their lives more, they value their time more, they value their health more, and that changes that eventually changes the culture.
And furthermore, let's correlate that to a very specific thing that happened here. Like we said, we're a burgeoning democracy, dare I even say country, even though we're one of the oldest countries, we're still...
We're one of the oldest nations, but we're a very young country.
Exactly. That's the way to put it. That's very well said. So let's say about a year and a half ago, people were allowed to smoke in restaurants, and smoking is very predominant here, and that's what it is.
We have one of the highest cancer rates in the world, by the way, as a result.
I mean, just normal, right? Like it's just normal. It's a byproduct of it. But you told me in your own words last time, when the law came that you're not allowed to smoke in the restaurant, you said impossible people are going to like follow this, and you were surprised how much people followed.
One day to the next.
So let's be logical about this too. The lawmakers, once they're going to get to that point, and it is going to happen, I think, sooner than later in regards to the seats, the this, the that, because listen, it's inevitable.
They already passed a law requiring car seats, and they're going to start enforcing it in a couple of months.
So this is what we're saying.
I don't know how many 3-month-old need to die until we figure this out, but you understand.
That. I get that, but it's easy to look at it, and I'm maybe playing devil's avocado over here. And it's easy to look at it in this position, but if we look at, let's say, where we're from, Canada, there was a lot of deaths before they put in...
Until the 70s,
70s, bro. They used to drink beers while they're driving, and it was okay. So it's not too far back either. So all I'm saying is I always try to remember Titanic, speedboat. Yes, there's a lot of situations, but it could be easily maneuvered, just like that lawyer that came down in one lunch and started a business opportunity with your colleague.
Of course. Listen, there's so many impressive things. I mean, if we're talking about from a business standpoint, you know, there's this guy, I'll probably try not to promote him, but I mean, I probably should. But I found this guy on Instagram. He's got these steaks that he dry ages. He gets them from a village, grass-fed steaks, fantastic. So I go, okay, let me text this guy or whatever. Calls me right away, super good customer service. He's like, listen, let me bring you a sample. He delivers a sample in this little, cooler bag container, takes out all the meats, show me, which one would you like? You know, then calls me afterwards, follows up. How'd you like them? Fantastic guy. And I was like, dude, yours is a business that I would love to patronize. I want to continue supporting people like that who are proud of the work that they do.
Nice.
Right. And again, if you have just like 1,000 of these people, right, who are creating something that they're proud of, who are investing in building something. There's another one. He was on this podcast as well. It was a soldier who fought in Martuni, and he told me his entire platoon, they promised when the war was over, they're all just going to leave Armenia and they're never coming back.
Yeah.
And then when the war ended, they all kind of realized they don't want to go. So now they live in Armenia and they started their own winery. They're all from Armenia, but so they went back. They left Yerevan and they went back and they started their own winery. So it's you have these kinds of stories, and there's so many of them.
Yeah.
And there's so many of these amazing people doing amazing things.
And you know what? One thing I'm going to say, and I've always said this, and this is why I not only resonate with Armenian people because I am Armenian, but resonate with who I am with my core. We are some of the most resilient people in the world. Yeah. And I will take resiliency over talent any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Sure. The only thing with resilience, though, is that it has potential that's not tapped into is potential that's wasted. So
I agree.
The question is, how do we move out of survivors to thrivers?
But like we said, it was the mindset.
Yeah.
That's how it is. It's by you being here, having these conversations, by me moving here. It's by us working with the top end, and then putting those events that you said, okay, oh my God, there was 100 people, but there was no men. That's still a success. Do it next time. There's going to be one. You just need to change the life of one person. Then that one person tells somebody else. And then it becomes, it's a process. Bro, I'm like, Pat, I am blessed. I speak at top end stages, bro. I've given speeches at Pfizer, Sanofi, Raymax, the Red Bull Racing Factory and beyond in front of thousands of people. In the beginning of my career, there was times, I kid you not, I was in a room with hundreds of chairs and there was 8 people in that room and 2 of them were my parents. What I'm saying is it's a process, and there was many of that before coming to the stages of thousands, and still to this day sometimes I go somewhere and it's like, oh wait a minute, the thought there was going to be more. So it's a process, and it's winning one person at a time. So that meat guy that you said, and then he thinks differently, acts differently, and then he goes to that event, and then it's all of this, bro. It's a process, and it's one person at a time, just like you said it, and that will compound over time. And compounding is one of the most powerful things in the world. Right now, we're in the beginning curve, so we're not seeing it. We're like, oh my God, it's frustrating. You went to Gimli, you did a speech. There wasn't this, there wasn't this. But bro, do it consistently. I tell you, in 3 years from now, maybe 10% is going to be men compared to 0. Then the year after, maybe it's going to go to 15. That is a win. Because we don't want, this is what it is, you and me, the work that we do, we don't want that. The people that are listening to this is not 95% of the population. It's the 5%. Yeah. We want to work with those 5%. And I'm not saying 95% is not good. No, they're great too in what they do. But we're talking about that 5%. And within that 5%, there's going to be people that are going to be leaders. That's the 1%. If we work with them, and like you said, there's that statistic, if you work for that with the 4%, then there's a revolution towards a positivity. That's what we need to work towards. And it starts with the youth and with the top 5% that we're talking about, then 4% and 1%.
I think it's a beautiful place to end this, actually. So,
let's go.
Chris, thanks for hopping on, man. This was amazing as always.
Man, first of many, I hope, brother. It was a pleasure.
Thanks again for watching CivilNet.